folks, welcome along to the second hour of tonight's regional development plan, professional development project. I'm gonna have to write this out. I'm gonna have to write this out in terms of what all the initials stand for. So, welcome to the second hour of tonight's show, brought to you by the Louth County Council Arts Office. So, thanks to Moya for all the help with this. So, this panel is called the Building Your Global Career, and basically, what we're going to be doing for the next kind of hour is or 45 minutes or so, and there'll be time for I'll make sure there's some time for questions as well. We've got more fine people here. We've got Dev from Southwest. We've got Robert Myrick from Eurosonic Norderslag. We've got Ben Buchanan, who's an agent with Creative Artists Agency, and we've got our own Angela Dorgan as well, talking about building your global career. What's needed to do this, and how I'm kind of approaching this is basically kind of like in a number of different kind of questions and topics that I'll ask each member, ask them all to kind of like talk about, join in terms of discussions about what the challenges are, what the opportunities are, where things are going right now. But I want to start basically by asking our three new members to kind of introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about themselves and where they came from and how they ended up in the jobs they are. Starting with Ben, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ben Buchanan. I'm an agent in the American office at Creative Artists Agency, or CAA. I've been here for about 10 years now. I work with a number of artists across international and the US, including Charlie XCX, Korn, Avenged Sevenfold, Gorillaz, Fiona Apple, Primal Scream, and many, many more. And I'm looking forward to this panel. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Ben, for joining us tonight. Dev, say hello and tell us about yourself.
Hi there. My name is Dev Sherlock. I'm senior programmer for South by Southwest, and I do look after Ireland as far as the Irish artists that come over. I've been working at South by Southwest, all sorts of music nerdy stuff, and we've had great everyone from Fontaines to Gurriers this past year.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And then last but not least, Robert, say hello, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Meijering. That's the way you pronounce it in Dutch. I'm head of program and booker for Eurosonic Music Conference and Festival in Groningen, the Netherlands. That's a city 2 hours away from Amsterdam. And next year we're celebrating 4 years anniversary. And we have a focus on European artists, booking upcoming and new artists on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And the last day is the fourth day, focusing on Dutch music only. Through the day, we have a music conference, and in the evening, we're focusing on live showcases.
Excellent stuff. Thank you very much, Rob. Great to have you on board. And Angela, unless do you want to say a few words? Are you okay?
No, I think everyone knows us. Just for this context, we'll just be talking about probably Ireland music, weekend music from Ireland.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So what we're going to aiming to do over the next kind of 40 minutes or so is find out how these people can assist and act in terms of building a global career and building sort of a global footprint for themselves. And let's start off with one of the first questions you ask an act who come to you. One of the first questions you ask an act, Ben, a new act who will approach you, talking to you about agency. Like, how do you gauge if that act is for you? How do you gauge the act's seriousness and kind of, I suppose, preparation for what's ahead?
I mean, for an international artist, one of the most important things that we look at is what is happening at home, who you're working with, what venues you're playing, how many tickets you're selling, what your network looks like is first and foremost. I would say the absolute 100% that we look at.
Okay, Dev, in terms of kind of South by Southwest, then, like, is there kind of like a sort of a level at which you need an act to be at before they consider South by Southwest, or are you kind of the kind of mind that, well, look, they're all adults. If they play South by Southwest, they know what they're about?
I think it's relative to territory and genre, and lots of different things come into it, but we do ask a million questions. I mean, we do ask about your team. We ask if you have a manager or an agent back home or an agent in North America, if you have a publicist. We ask for press links. We ask for YouTube links. We look at your social numbers. I mean, we really look at everything. And then at the end of the day, we also listen to the music, which is really critical. And some bands hit all of the data points and we say, right, this band is export ready and it makes sense to bring them over because they're ready to do business. They've outgrown, their hometown or their home country, even in some cases. And those are just sort of natural invites because it makes sense. But other times there's just the art is so compelling that we also feel like we need to bring it over for that reason and sort of amplify it. So it really varies. It depends. But yeah, it's, sort of similar data points to what Ben uses. We're looking at what size venues you're playing and, if you've toured outside of your own home area and things, all sorts of things.
Right. Rob, in terms of Eurosonic and kind of like the trip to kind of Groningen every year, like over the time I've been going there. One thing I always noticed was all the bands who were playing at Groningen could actually play live. I never saw a dud band, even if it was a metal band from Finland. I'm not really a metal fan, but I would go and see the band. They could play live. They could actually pull things off. So when it comes to booking the bands for Eurosonic, are you very much kind of like focusing straight in on the band's live ability, or are you also looking at metrics like Ben and like Dev discussed as well?
Of course, there are many similarities, like what Ben was saying, and both Dev and Ben. I guess export readiness is a key value from the booking perspective. And having said that, we very much appreciate the input of valued partners like First Music Contact, but many other export offices from Europe. I guess they are very much on track when it comes to knowing if a band is ready to go or not. We really try to avoid to have bands in the too early stage at Eurosonic. It often happens, but having said that, it's very important to understand who is behind the artist. Is there an agent behind? Is there a manager? Are there capable people who can do very important work and get things done? At the end, we are looking not only at the music, the quality of the music, which is a key value, as Dev said, but I guess it's also very important if the live show is good enough. And so, yeah, our main job is to take care of that. And there are always exceptions, always artists who played in the too early stage at Eurosonic, but often that's also a wish of the management. It happens that artists are already pre-signed to a major label or a great label or an indie label, whatever you want to call them. But with this knowledge, it's up to us and, of course, up to the artist and the management to decide if it's too early or in time to play an event like Eurosonic.
Sometimes I feel with Eurosonic, especially that like there is a kind of like a discovery element there it's quite interesting. I mean, I remember seeing the very first gigs by First Aid Kit, Licky Lee, and Christine the Queens in Groningen at Eurosonic, and these were all acts that in all three cases they didn't have the team together, but there was something about them. So the bookers obviously saw something or heard something that you probably thought yourself, okay, if we put these people on our festival, this is going to be good for them. It's a good step. It's a good step for them. It's a good step for us as well.
You're totally right. There's a detail connected to which I want to underline, which is very important. They did not have the full time as they were or have now together, but there was somebody behind the artist who believed in the artist. Maybe we also had, I clearly remember having Hosier in a very, very early stage of his career. It was the first show outside Ireland in Groningen. We literally took him to the church. It was not even a hit single, and he played a second show the day after. And Emma Banks, colleague of Ben here, signed him immediately, or maybe 2 weeks before Eurosonic, right before Christmas. The deal was done. Emma could do her job, and the rest is history. And I guess quality comes fast. And with all the three artists you mentioned, Jim, it is a fact that all the three artists were rising in their home territories or home countries. Licky Lee was still unknown, First Aid Kit as well, but they really were on the rise already. So the people from the radio, from the broadcaster, from the export office, everyone somehow believed in these artists, although they were in a very early stage of the career back then. So it was also a risk of bringing them to Eurosonic. But the positive thing is that they delivered and played great showcases.
Excellent stuff. So Angela, turn to you then. We've heard, like all three previous panelists have mentioned those words export ready, and when it comes to kind of like that export readiness, how do you at Music from Ireland decide on this? How do you gauge it? So you're talking, like, I mean, you're the person they're going to contact regarding Irish acts who've maybe contacted them independently of you, and they're also coming to you as well looking for heads up on acts. What are you saying to them, and how do you and your team gauge the kind of export readiness of Irish acts?
So I suppose we don't. Ireland Music Week does, and our judges at Ireland Music Week. So Ben, Dev, and Robert all attend Ireland Music Week. Dev and Robert every year. Ben, we try and share the love around CAA because everyone gets jealous because we keep inviting Ben. So we have to every now and again invite Carly or somebody else. But Robert and Dev, because they're our partners in Music from Ireland, they come to Ireland Music Week every year. So when bands apply to Ireland Music Week and the workshop we do before the application date finishes, we talk about how the judges mark the acts that apply. So we had 687 applications this year, and we have, I think, some 30 judges, international and domestic, who will now mark those applications out of 10 in 5 categories. 2 of those categories have to do with export readiness. So how those are measured then are they will look at exactly the stuff that Ben and Dev and Robert have talked about. You'll get an opportunity to put in your application. Where are you doing gigs? Do you have a home agent? What's your team? What's your domestic team? But also, in case you haven't made the jump yet, we also measure ambition as a measurement of export readiness. Do you know, if you see an application from an act and they say, we sound like such and such, here's where our big numbers are in terms of streaming. So we're going to target the Great Escape first, then we want to do Eurosonic, then we want to do the States, because we think it's going to be too early to go. So if someone has a plan for their music or is following a plan for their music and how they want to judge their audience, and again, it's back to the 3 most important parts of that judging criteria are the music. So we're taking as a given that your music is amazing. And the export readiness part then is, are you ready to jump off? Are you ready? Because we've been given taxpayer money to invest in you, to bring you to these events. So for us, you have to be the best bang for buck too, because if it's too early, like Dev and I have had conversations where he'll tell us who he's inviting, but he will take a lead from us on what stage of development these acts are at, and do they have a team? Because sometimes it can be as bad to go too early as it is not to go at all. So we together then will chat to the act and to their team about, maybe could you go next year instead? And maybe, so it's all about knowing yourself, knowing where you want to go and knowing when you want to go there. And then looking at the intelligence that your socials, your streaming, all of that is giving you. So if you're getting a load of listeners from countries you've never been to in Europe, and they're listening to you and but you have no context there, Eurosonic is a perfect one for you, because Eurosonic is where all the radio from all over Europe go, and it's where all the festival buyers from all over Europe go. So that's going to be a really intelligent one. If you're trying to build your team in the US, and say if your music industry team is like a label, a publisher, and an agent, and you have one of those in the US and they're working really hard for you, then it's a good time to go to South by, because you have someone stateside selling you, making sure. So apart from us as the export office, you've someone getting on to them, telling them you're going to be playing the breakfast at South by. And thankfully, because we've been doing South by for 22 years, we're one of the must-see events. So you're also benefiting from all the Irish acts, including the Hosiers and the Dermots and the Fontaines and the Seamats and everyone. You're going to benefit from all of them, having been there already, because they've drawn the attention. So because of all the people who've gone before you, there's an expectation that the Irish Showcase is going to be good anyway. So those export readiness measurements are what we look at. But also you have to remember that you're not only in a competitive context here, you're also then going to be in a competitive context at Eurosonic or at South by. So it's all about, there are definitely far more acts out there than there are signed. So you have to remember that even if all of these come right, you're also then, because the music industry is a cruel and shallow, awful place too, if you're not minded. So you know, you need to be aware of that as well. But I think what's great here is that we have identified a pipeline that we can support you to build at each stage of.
Okay, so turning now to you, Ben, you know, so basically, like, I mean, the act is coming out to you, they're export ready. In terms of the team around them, for you, who's the most important member of that team? Is it important that the band obviously have a manager in place? Is it important to have a label, a publisher? In terms of gauging the team, what's the most important component for you from a stateside point of view?
I mean, there's not a really simple answer to that. I think it's very nuanced. It depends on where the artist is in their development, like I mean, there's different levels of export ready, obviously, where there's an artist that's, if you're an artist already breaking in America, like, you're going to need everyone. Like, basically everyone on that team is just fuel for the fire to, like, fan the flames to gain that momentum. If you're building it, like, from my perspective, I think that the manager and the publicist are probably the most important people. The publicist is your sort of cheerleader out there, like, wrangling industry and helping amplify what, say, the manager and myself are doing in the marketplace. Because it's one thing to book a show in America, but you need to get people out, and you need to get the word out. And that, like, you need your industry cheerleaders. And I mean, we all, like, speaking to, like, Devin and Robert and Angela here, like, we all know that, like, a trusted source means so much more when you're getting tipped off on a band than just randomly finding something online. So the more people that you have sort of at your back is ideal.
Right.
Sorry.
Excellent, Ben. So, Dev, in terms of kind of South by Southwest, it used to be the case that a lot of acts would go to find team members at South by Southwest. Am I right in thinking that these days most bands who pull up in Austin, they've already got the key players in place?
It really varies, Jim. And, you know, to Ben's point, I think, you know, a publicist is maybe the overlooked secret weapon in a lot of ways, because there can be a catch-22 here. A band that is handling their own PR and their own live booking and their own socials on their own very well. There's a member of the band that maybe they distribute those tasks among the artists and the members of the band. They might be doing a really good job at it. And the longer they can continue on an upward trajectory on their own, the more leverage they're going to have when it comes time to talk to a manager or an agent. And, you know, the question then, you know, an artist at the beginning of their career is, I'll take any manager that can do anything for me. The more progress you're able to make on your own, the more you're able to say, okay, you want to manage me. What can you do for me that we haven't already achieved? What can you take me to that next level? And you have more leverage, and you're going to have higher caliber managers or agents interested in you. So it's tricky. I think it differs from artist to artist.
Okay, both the last 2 points from Ben and from Dev have been really, really interesting, because you're kind of amplifying things I said earlier on in the first part of the presentation before you came on board. My next question is kind of to Rob, in terms of kind of like, I mean, Eurosonic, and Eurosonic has a really interesting metric when it comes to kind of measuring the success of bands who are going there, and that's how many bands get booked onto European festivals as a result of the appearance itself. So appearance at Groningen and at Eurosonic. Do you want to kind of talk a little bit about that, and how closely ye measure that? How closely you keep an eye on the fact that, oh, well, actually, that actually ends up with 13 kind of like appearances on other festivals. That actually ends up with 6. Is that your kind of main metric for I suppose gauging the success of acts who play in Groningen?
Yes, it is, and I think it's very important. And I mean, it was about 10 years ago that we asked ourselves, how relevant are we, and do we really contribute to developing, presenting, giving these artists a launch into Europe, or is the answer no? And we only can learn and answer this question properly by doing by get things maybe more you get a better insight by using the data we have. So Eurosonic, for those who don't know, is a non-profit entity. That's one, but we very much are engaged with many partners in Europe. So we also closely work together with the digital music platforms in Europe, such as Apple, Deezer, Spotify. And having said that, we use these data to measure. We can talk about success, but if an artist who is booked at Eurosonic, you can do the measurements very simple, a couple of weeks before, and also a couple of weeks after. There are other reasons why artists can get can be successful, but based on bookings, that's a very important parameter. So we have a program called European Talent Exchange, and these are all the festival bookings. We have around 300 talent buyers, representatives from festivals. We're talking about boutique, smaller ones, mid-size, but also the major ones like Siget, Glastonbury. Representatives are coming to Groningen in order to discover artists. If a band got booked at a festival outside their home country, they get a point. This will return in these measurements, these data, but it's the same when you talk about repertoire, talk about songs. We are very closely work together with the EBU, the European Broadcasting Union, and as well as said, the DME platforms such as Deezer. So long story short, we can show the representatives of the artists themselves, what the impact of a showcase is. And it 9 out of 10 times more visibility, more social stats are going up after playing Eurosonic, or maybe after the announcement. Sometimes it already happens that the social stats are going up. So we can link this to our own activities, but maybe also to activities from the band themselves. So if there is a single release, that's obvious, then the band knows, hey, we have a single out that's released. But if it's backed up with an announcement at Eurosonic 1 week later or maybe earlier, they also can see these stats. So it's obvious that of course it's very important to keep on showcasing artists at events like South by and many other ones, also Eurosonic. But we felt the need to have this data in place to prove, and that's what we are still doing on the festival side and on the repertoire, on the artist repertoire level as well.
Excellent stuff. Okay, that's a good picture from Europe. I want to go back stateside for a minute and talk to kind of Dev and Ben. And this is something to do with kind of like, I mean, the obstacles and challenges that are coming for acts who are looking to go to the States right now. Like every time we have these professional development panels, when it comes up to the States, if we're talking to kind of like Convy Law or whatever, there's all these talks about visas and all about the process that's involved. What's it like at the moment for you two as kind of like as stateside people who may be booking and buying some European talent to come over, encouraging European talent to come over and play shows or play festivals? Given kind of like, I mean, what we're seeing over here from the Orange Lad in the White House and what's going on with his administration, is it more? Are you seeing it being more difficult for acts to kind of from here to go over there to play?
I mean, Dev might be able to answer that because he's had some more proximity to this with.
Okay, Dev, do you want to take that one there?
Oh, I was hoping you'd take that one, Ben.
He did well. It was a brilliant,
Honestly,
it was brilliant in hurling terms. Like the
I
lad,
can take that one. It's hella hard at the moment for our artists.
all of you take it then, like because it's something that like
Go on, Ben.
go on, Dev.
I mean, I haven't, like, I have artists that are currently in the process of applying for visas. And I've also had an artist recently decide not to take a tour of America because they were fearful, based on their political views online and in public, that they weren't going to get approved for a visa, which is a whole other situation that we've never really had to deal with before. But I mean, it's certainly, like, there's lots of questions right now as to what the immigration world is going to look like in America. But I'm currently in the mix on it right now, so that's why I was sort of deferring to Dev, because I mean, I don't know if anyone got turned at the border that was coming to South by for you or not, but
I mean, how did it look like at Southwest this year, Dev? Was there many calls to kind of like the emergency numbers about people being stopped or things happening, or is it the case that acts are kind of are probably a little bit sussed about it, that they're realizing it's like, well, the Ben's client, that maybe this isn't a good time for that particular act to tour the US?
I think, to Ben's point, I mean, there probably has been a little bit of a chilling effect. I think that's across everything, and not just, artists and tourists coming into the country. I think we are experiencing an overall chilling effect at the moment, which is indeed chilling. Um, from our perspective, I mean, we do have a unique loophole where, because our artists are showcasing as part of an exposition, effectively, they can come in on an ESTA waiver. They don't need to apply for a work visa to have permission to come and perform, as long as they're not doing other shows outside of the festival or paid performances or anything like that. So we're unique to pretty much any other festival in the country, except for, I think, Folk Alliance, where artists can come over on an ESTA waiver to perform. Now, that does bring with it perhaps a little more scrutiny, because the State Department is doing that artist a favor by letting them in without having to apply for an expensive visa and go through that whole vetting process. Perhaps that gives the border agents more liberty to scrutinize that artist on arrival. We haven't really seen that yet, but I think it's, as far as your question is concerned, I think it's something that could be an issue. Who knows? It's really, we're really just in uncharted territory at the moment.
Yeah, I think anything to do with kind of like, I mean, the current administration is uncharted territory, because you don't know from day to day what's going to change or what's going to remain the same.
pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. So then,
Just to add to, outside of the visas being a mess these days and lots of uncertainty, from an agent perspective, one of the things that I'm finding more and more challenging as the days go by for getting artists over is it's just so expensive for an artist to come and tour in America. And you're seeing less and less support from labels that you would historically have been able to lean on for your first tours. And it's becoming incredibly challenging. And I encourage anyone that is watching and listening to this panel to make the most of your time in market and be very strategic about what you're doing, because one of the pitfalls that we often see is people race to get in and do shows in America, to get in front of people and to showcase, and oftentimes it's too early, and you've really spent a lot of money and you're then unable to capitalize on the work that you did. And it's so important to be able to think the next tour, the next two tours ahead, of what it is that your long-term goal is, and making sure that that first time you're in market and you're really investing that hard-earned money, that you get the right return and that you're also able to come back to the marketplace.
That's an excellent point, and that's kind of a good point to bring Angela in, because I mean Angela's obviously kind of like feeling those calls from Max at that early stage. Angela, like in terms of kind of like your checklist for acts, and following on from what Ben and kind of Dev have said about the current situation, and also kind of like knowing when's the right time to go. Is this something that kind of you face day in day out with acts who are thinking that they are export ready, or acts who kind of may have been offered a festival, maybe been offered a one-off festival in the States, or maybe offered a one-off festival somewhere that's going to require a little bit of money to get there? And how do you help them gauge, and how do you help them answer that question?
I suppose anybody who attended last night, we had a panel last night on funding to help you go from like stage to stage of your career for local, domestic, and international. Culture Ireland talk about their touring funding and their showcase funding. So we're funded through their showcase funding, and they themselves have realized how hard it is to get into the US. So they are unlikely now, outside of our activity in the US, they're unlikely to support someone for a one-off. And that comes back to what Ben and Deb were saying about if you're going to be in market, make it a valuable time in market. So I think it's very hard though, because it's a huge seminal moment in your career to get an invite for South by. Like an invite, if you're announced for South-Southwest or you're announced for Eurosonic, your stats, your media stats, your listens, your play, you're suddenly being talked about by everybody, because it is one of those kind of gear change moments. We love, I'm sure it's true in Holland as well, or the Netherlands, Robert, and it's true here that when someone from another country says you're good, people start to, feel you're better as well. So it's like, being asked on a date and suddenly loads of people around you go, oh, I should have asked her out. It's not really, but it's kind of. But so it's very hard to talk somebody out of that. But it's what we do is just look at if you have a finite amount of money, because Music from Ireland can't and won't and don't 100% fund you to go to any of these events. You have to be, and how we gauge why we do that is because, yes, we're here to help you, and we're here to be that key financial intervention for you, but we can't, and the taxpayer can't afford to pay for you to go there and get nothing out of it. So you have to have, as an artist, skin in the game. It has to matter to you that you're there, and you have to have something to measure before you come back. So what we do once an act has been selected for anything is, first of all, and there's a reason why Fontaines and many other bands refer to me as the bucket of cold water moment in their career, because you kind of have to be very honest. Of course, you have to be honest with an artist and say, okay, you're not ready for this because this will require this, this, and this. But I understand your excitement to go. So let's look at ways we can build, and maybe, and Dev has been, and Robert have been very generous with this when they've offered people to play and the artists decide then they're not ready. Robert and Dev are very generous to then look at them again for the following year. So, and not everybody gets that. So we do appreciate that. And I think the ultimate thing is up to you. If you're looking at Eurosonic and South by in the same year, something's wrong with your plan. Because you should, if you're going to Eurosonic this year, you should be looking at Europe and building context in Europe and looking at maybe The Great Escape and then Reeperbahn. And if you're looking at South-West, it should be the year after you've done Eurosonic. Because it's the domestic build and then the European build and then the international build. And like for Hosier, for instance, he played Hard Working Class Heroes in 2013. Robert played with you in 2014. By March, he was over with you, Dev. And by the time March came, everything was sewn up. So that would be unusual to do it that close. So when the way we look at Irish artists as they build is they would probably go Ireland Music Week, The Great Escape, Primavera, Reeperbahn, Eurosonic, South by. And that's the trajectory that has worked for a lot of artists. But it's just, you have to look at your finances and say, if I go to South by and I get a tour, because that's what you're going for. You're going there to get bookings, to build your audience in the US. You're not just going for South by and go, that's great, we played that bucket list, off we go, because that's not a good investment. But you have to not be working, because you have to be in a situation where when that tour is booked, you have to be ready to go back over again. But if you go to Eurosonic in January and you've booked a load of summer festivals, how are you going to take advantage of that? You know what I mean? So there's an intelligence. We do a lot of conversations with artists once they get selected for events. For instance, the 50 bands who will get artists who will get selected for Ireland Music Week will have a mentoring session with our whole team before they play. So we'll know exactly what they're looking for walking into Ireland Music Week. We'll share that with Dev and Ben and Robert and everybody else who's coming. And then we'll sit with everybody as they get invited to each event and equip them. Tell them who's going to be there. Tell them what's likely to happen there. Talk to them about the intelligence of, if you're going to South by, pick 5 people you want in front of you. Not, we're going to go to the back end of the database and invite everybody. Pick 5 people that you'll absolutely murder yourself if you don't meet them. And do that well. And I think that is true of any gig you do. Add 5, if you're paying a support to somebody, go out, have a friend with a thick neck in the audience giving out lollipops for emails. Every time you play anywhere, whether it's a showcase or a gig or a festival, your aim is to walk away from that with more fans than you walked into. Because at the end of the day, that's what all of our jobs are, between you and the audience member, and that you releasing that beautiful music from your chest bone and it landing on an audience chest bone. Every job that any of us will be talking about over the next couple of nights and 4 nights in May, that's what we all work at, getting those numbers up, getting more souls around your story.
Okay, so we've just been kind of talking quite a bit about, kind of like, we started off talking there about the obstacles and challenges which people face kind of going to the US right now, and just going through kind of the metrics, the cost of all that. I want to bring you into the conversation again now, Rob, and this is kind of from the European angle, like, and the title of the panel is Building a Global Career. So it's not just about the UK, it's not just about the US, it's not about Asia, it's also about Europe. And Europe traditionally has been somewhere that Irish acts have kind of used to treat as a bit of an afterthought. Have you seen a bit like true big bands applying to play Eurosonic, true, like, and just through the general kind of like, your general kind of like, I suppose, oversight of what's going on in Europe right now, and you begin to see more acts kind of like from Ireland and the UK begin to realize that you can actually build quite a sizable footprint for yourself by concentrating for a while on Europe?
Yeah, for sure. I think I guess Eurosonic has a long track record when it comes to building careers from UK and Irish acts. But I think there's a significant difference between Ireland now, or maybe the last 7, 8 years, and all the years before. I think the general quality have risen so fast, and also from a broader perspective. It's not only Murder Capital, Gurius, Fontaines, but also on a very different level, talking about music styles. And that totally makes sense, and it's very important because that's a big difference. And the UK is known and praised for the fact that that's going on for a longer time. They have a very long track record by delivering musical artists, and musical level is very high. But to answer your question, yes, I think more and more agents, since 15 years for sure, maybe longer even, they do understand that they can build careers in Europe, that they maybe not even want to invest in other territories, but just take it from there and just see how far they can build artists. I think Edit is a great example of a UK band who was totally unknown when they played Eurosonic, and right after they broke, Franz Ferdinand, same story. But I think also on an Irish level, we have beautiful examples of artists. Gurius was mentioned by Dev, I guess, and it's a fact that all these bands are being booked in a period after Eurosonic somehow. So if they play Eurosonic, sometimes, of course, they play Paris or maybe Amsterdam, or they do some shows in Europe. But after they are discovered by bookers from the festivals, or if the team is okay, if there's a great agent team on board featuring a great agent and manager, everything comes together, and you can tour Europe in a decent way without investing too much money or maybe losing money. So that makes sense.
Yeah, one good example before we move on from this one of an Irish act who did really well or Eurosonic and who went on to kind of like tour Europe and actually became a bit of a success story in Groningen is Conor O'Brien's Villagers. They would have played there
Sure.
in 2010. I remember walking into Vera a couple of years later, and Vera is an amazing club which is based in Groningen. And on the wall of Vera, they put the gig of the year on the wall as voted for by
Yeah.
the audience, and Villagers had won that twice, I think. It shows you which he did a venue wasn't on the main drag, it was well in town. And he managed to build a following, built a kind of like a team around him that helped him for years after that. Okay. So basically, there's a couple of questions coming in now on chat. And I know there's some more questions. So I'm going to round it up here by just asking each one of the panelists, just basically kind of like, the stuff that they know works when it comes to building your global career. And on the other side, the stuff don't work. Dev, starting with you.
I think, Ben sort of referred to this earlier. I think focusing on markets is key. For Irish acts, the obvious move, if you're pinching pennies, the diaspora in Boston and New York is considerable, to say the least. You could come over and spend a couple of weeks doing residencies in Boston and New York and build a pretty solid fan base right there. I think PR is important. I think, again, focusing on territories is important. I think doing cultural exchange with bands is always good. If you're a death metal band from some remote place in Ireland that's not going to find another death metal band to play with in Ireland, you make friends with one in Sweden or in Australia, and you can do a cultural exchange and tour with one another, and they can open for you in your home country, and you can open for them in their home country. I think there's a lot of creative ways like that to get outside of your own immediate market.
Okay, what about things don't work?
Things that don't work. Oh gosh.
Think the common mistakes you see next to again and again and again. That you've got to the stage where when an act mentions this, or when you hear about it, you just go, "Don't they know?"
Well, I think one of the more discouraging things that we see are acts jumping too early. And I kind of referred to this earlier, jumping too quickly to accept an agency offer or a manager offer or even a label offer. I think the longer you can go on your own, I think do that. Just because you have an agent doesn't mean that agent is going to get you onto Coachella. I think
You're stealing my lines here, man.
Sorry, Ben.
I'm just teasing. I'm teasing. Sorry.
But yeah, I do think, and Angela referred to the question of patience as well. It's so difficult to tell a band, wait another year before you come to South by Southwest. It's the most difficult thing to say, but inevitably another year of development and you're that much better live and you've got that much more listeners and your numbers are better and you're much more momentum coming into an event like South by Southwest or even Eurosonic or anything that you're going to do outside of your country.
Okay, excellent stuff. Same question to you, Ben. What are the things you've seen that work and don't work?
One of the things that has been working post-COVID is artists getting out in the marketplace and finding their fans and getting in front of their fans and building relationships and allowing their fans to take ownership. And that means coming over and not just playing New York and LA and then going home and then coming back later. It's just going out there when the time is right and playing the 10 major markets in the United States and really building that fan base. Oftentimes I'm going to meander into like what doesn't work a little bit here, but like oftentimes people get so hung up on trying to support another artist, and it's really lightning in a bottle to have coming out of a support tour and it really driving momentum these days. So I always like, for what works is really just getting out and really establishing that like relationship with your fans, because those fans that are going to come to those shows where you're playing 250 cap rooms are going to be your fan for life, and they are your mouthpiece in the market.
I'm going to say something now that I'm just going to assume. I'm assuming that the days of kind of like acts trying to kind of like reach an audience by just streaming a gig, from their room or whatever, that was COVID stuff. That's over. That's not going to work anymore.
Yeah.
Okay,
No.
great. Great. Excellent. Thank you very much. Rob, what about you then? Things you from your perch in the Netherlands that you know work and don't work when it comes to building a global audience?
Things what don't works is that you need promotion, you need attention, you need somehow to build up either an audience or online. But if you don't have a profile and you won't sell any tickets, hard tickets in a venue. But by playing Eurosonic, and if there's nobody in the ground who is able to help you out on a promotional level, it doesn't matter to come to Groningen at all, or to consider going to Eurosonic. So I'm a bit like you were saying, Dev. It's a hard thing to turn down artists and to explain like, hey, we will consider you next year. But our job is also to be very straight and honest,
Yeah.
and to give advice on that level. And it totally makes sense. Not wasting our money, because we're investing a lot of money also in the production and everything we organize in Groningen, but definitely not the money of the artist. We have a quite long list over the years of artists who told me and my colleagues that they were ready, but they were not ready at all. So, and it has been proven big time that that is definitely a no. But it's not only about Eurosonic. I think generally you only should consider going there if you are ready. So I guess it's a call for a more sustainable approach when it comes to planning, building your career, and dream out loud, work on your planning, but you need a common sense and understand what the perspective of these music conferences and festivals are.
Did any of the acts, Rob, before we move on to Angela, did any of the acts who were on your shit list there, the acts who went in too early, who weren't ready, did any of them subsequently kind of like, make a break? Did any of them subsequently like regroup and come back again and actually go through the second time?
I was talking this afternoon to a colleague of mine, and she's young. She went to a show of Orla Gardland a couple of days ago in Amsterdam. She loved it, but she's 20 years old and she just discovered Orla. I told her, like, you're not aware that Orla played in 2015 in Eurosonic. No, I was in the university back then, didn't have any money, was not living in Groningen yet. From what I remember, this show was not necessarily successful. Maybe something happened behind the scene, maybe on a management level. I don't know. But the fact is that it takes time to build a career. It takes time to break into a country, into a territory. You can dream of Coachella. You can dream of, playing the biggest venue around the corner. Keep on dreaming, but also be very realistic when it comes to your making, if you want to make it a part of your plans. So I think the Orla Garland example I just shared is just for the sake that it's a fact that not all the artists can break. It sometimes needs, it always takes, even with Fontaines, it took 2 years to, maybe 4 years. If you, I spoke to the agent the other day, a couple of months ago. He told me now it took 4 years to reach the point when they got signed to a major, well, an indie, but XL Records, and that they really were playing the venues they were dreaming of 4 years ago.
Okay.
I think the theme that's emerging, Jim, is that, skipping steps just doesn't work. And people think Chapel Roan was an overnight success. She was at it for 7 years, and now all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, Chapel Roan, You know, she
I
just
think, I
blew
think
up out of nowhere. That doesn't, it's not really true.
every overnight success takes 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay, last point then to Angela. Angela, from your perch at the Music from Ireland office, what are the things you've seen that work? What are the things you've seen that don't work? Keep it short.
Honestly, everything the guys have said, but for me, it's being authentic, be yourself. There's an audience for everybody. I have seen people chase a sound with their music and knowing that that sound isn't them. And I've seen that fail. I think you have to be really authentic to your own music and your audience will come. I also think, like, I agree, like Fontaine's played Ireland Music Week in 2017. So it is by no means nobody is doing this quickly and doing it by steps. I think if you look at an example, like, and we're going to meet their manager tomorrow night. We do an event in LA, or we had done, hopefully we'll be doing it again, called School Night, which is a tip night for new music every Monday night in LA, and all the industry come out. And we brought Kneecap there before their film, before anything else had happened. And I stood in the audience and watched 200 American kids, not Irish, not diaspora, we weren't in Boston, sing in Irish every word of Ciarta back to Kneecap. And Kneecap had found that audience online. They had found it by word of mouth. They had found it by being their authentic selves and telling a story. So I think what do you do? Be yourself. Tell your story. And, if your music is quirky, have your PR and your publicist be quirky too. Build your team as close to who you are as you possibly can. And my note for the don'ts is it's very boring and it's very mammy-ish, but it's like, and excuse my English, don't be a dick. Just be a nice person to deal with. And I think I'm seeing Robert and Ben and Dev nodding there. If something doesn't work out the first time, you're going to come back to those people again. Like, everybody knows that not everything happens at the pace we'd all like to. But if someone, if you're at Ireland Music Week or you're at one of these, you're talking to other artists, you're already somebody who's open to looking for and asking for help. As you build your career, every single person you work with is or can be one of those trusted voices that Ben's talking about. Everybody, labels, managers, festivals, bookers, agents, all have trusted voices in every country. So just make sure in general that you're really sound. Be sound to the sound engineer, be sound to the other bands. The amount of stories I've heard of bands getting breaks from other bands, Idols were brilliant to Fontaine's. They were, and I know Joey from Pizza Records is on this call, and Fontaine's being on Partisan, and then some of Joey's artists going there, and those artists being so lovely and so minding of each other. So be authentic and be sound would be my 2 bits of advice.
Okay, that's fantastic. So some great insights in the last hour from our panelists. And has anyone got any questions? And if you ain't got questions, we've got a few minutes to take some questions. Please make the questions short and snappy, says the lad who's been talking for ages. So it's like, just keep the questions short and snappy if you can. If they're for one person, please say who that person is as well. And just unmute yourself and say hello. Don't be afraid, lads.
I have another question. I was here yesterday. I also had questions yesterday. Hi everybody.
Hey, Vanya.
For today. I am going to say, and I'm going to put myself in that box of, I'm someone who's not jumping too early, but I have an O1 visa for the US, and I have a couple of, like, I'm off to the US on Monday. I have a little bit of anxiety about how immigration is going to treat me just generally because of how things are going. But I have a really dumb practical question, and I'm just wondering about the likes of public liability insurance and instrument insurance internationally. I'm working with Martin in the US, so I don't have to bring anything with me to the US, and hopefully not to Australia. They're going to sort me out for there too. But just traveling with instruments is really difficult, and I'm wondering if you've got any advice on that and public liability insurance for international stuff, because anything here seems to be limited to here.
Anyone wants to take that question?
It's not something that we necessarily deal with on the agency side. It's typically your manager or your business manager would sort of navigate the insurance world. I would definitely say make sure you have medical insurance,
Yeah.
which I think goes without saying. And then it might be a little late if you're leaving tomorrow, but I would also make sure you have a carnet just documenting what you're importing and exporting. Would probably be the most important document you need to travel with.
Yeah, and I'd say on the other question, your best resource there is the airline and the small print on the airline's websites, and ask them, because it's mostly they will be the people responsible for covering. Anybody I've ever talked to has always said, you know, if you're touring extensively, especially in the US, and you're getting on a lot of flights, leave your favorite guitar at home. That's not very helpful, I know. But
well, no, it's fine.
We have a really good resource, Stevie has shared it there for visas, called Tamizdat. And I know they're a not-for-profit artist agency, and I'm sure they've done work in this. So let me try and find out for you, Gronya, and I'll come back to you.
That's who I got my visa with, so I can reach out to
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt will have loads of resources on that, I think.
Yeah. It's not so much for the US, just because I have, like, Martin are sending me guitars for the US for Australia, so I don't need them. It's more for, I suppose, generally everybody travels, so I suppose,
Tom in the chat has just put in something about worldwide EU insurance for instruments available from harmonia.eu.
Oh yeah.
Have a look at that as well, Grania. It's in the chat. Okay, one more question before we let these good people go.
Hello, what's the crack? Hello, everyone. Angela, how are you? It's Sean here.
Sean.
How are you? How's things? What's the story?
Good
to see your face. Yeah, what's up? So my name is Sean. I'm in an artist called Mixer. And like, I've had a very fulfilling career today. And like, on last year I toured at Mary Wallopers, I toured at Gurriers, you know, I've done headline shows in London, Paris, Amsterdam, but I have no luck when it comes to like applying to whether it's Ireland Music Week or Eurosonic. And it's kind of a weird position to be in, because there's so many people that like really support the project, and you're like, oh, I don't know how like Mixer isn't bigger, but it's like hitting this wall of like, when does the break come? And like kind of struggling with like not getting the team 100% right, you know, like working with an agent who's like, oh, I'm going to promise you the moon and the stars, and then it's just like you don't hear from them, and then you move on and someone else wants to work with you. But yeah, any advice on that, or kind of like how to like move forward, especially with like, you know, Dev and Ben and all the guys in the chat as well from Eurosonic? It interests me to hear what they have to say.
Maybe a question, Sean. Hi.
What's up?
How did you manage to have these gigs? Did you arrange these gigs by yourself, or were you asked to play? How did you end up in Amsterdam?
Well, yeah, I played London Calling in Amsterdam twice, which was incredible, you know, like really, really amazing times. And then went back and played a headline show off the back of that in Oki in Amsterdam. And like, even for example, in 3 weeks' time, we've been asked to play Supersonic, and it's like €300 to travel from London. And it's like, I can't afford to do one show, but then the show is with a band who are doing quite well, similar size, but they've got a show in Groningen the next day, then another show in France at the weekend, and another show in Belgium. It's like, I don't have the agent right now who's really kind of sculpting that kind of, you know, business model out for me. So it's like all of these things are still happening and the conversation's still going on. We're struggling to like really map it out, you know what I mean? And maybe just get an opportunity where it does click for people. But yeah, do you know what I mean?
And do you have a plan, like in terms of releases? Are you talking to, I mean, circling back to the start of this conversation when Ben was pointing out that you might need a publicist or maybe someone else who helps to arrange you, to convince the agent to become your agent. I think everyone needs a plan. Everyone who works with musicians themselves need a plan. I think that plan is so important.
No, for sure. Like for me at the minute, it's that kind of cliche of like the grass is always greener sometimes, and like then you're kind of like, you know, life gets in the way, and you're like, right, you need to pivot. You're wrong. I'm still making, and it always feels like it's getting better, and that's so exciting. But it's like the wheels of the machine don't seem to be like oiled and moving with me. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's probably kind of a complaint as well, Sean, that many acts have as well. That like it's sometimes it feels
Yeah.
like things are out of sync. And there's one that like there's it's really funny. Like at the start, I gave this kind of presentation about the music industry, and with some of the Rob
Mm.
said earlier on when he was talking about his assistant going to see Orla Gartland and basically kind of Rob kind of going, "Oh, I
Yeah.
saw her 8 years ago," or you like I had her on 8 years ago, and sometimes we forget that like I mean how people experience music and how people like I mean find music, it just differs. It's like you may think that I'm just waiting for the right moment, and it may well be
Yeah.
that completely surreptitious, something completely accidental, someone stumbling on a YouTube clip, someone kind of
Yeah.
going to one of your shows. Next thing, things begin to kind of progress. You know, and again, it goes back to what Dev said earlier on about Clyde Chapel Roan. There's no such thing as an overnight success. They have to put
For
in the.
sure.
It's a case of kind of sticking to the task. You know.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, it's good. It's good to jump on because like there's a part of me that was gets disheartened, and then I'm like, you know, I have an opportunity to jump on and like talk to all you guys and just listen and be a sponge for 2 hours. And it does. It makes you realize that like, you know, this is a long game, but it's a good one. It's a good one to be a part of.
And
Sean,
I would echo that as well, Sean. I would say go. This is what this week and the week from the 12th to the 15th is for. Get on these. Get your name
Yeah,
in front of people. Like I know now that Dev and Ben and Robert are going to say, so tell me more about this guy,
yeah,
because
yeah, yeah,
you know you jumped up and you chatted. I would say as well. I'd echo Jim. I think, um everything is competitive. So, you
yeah,
know, I don't know how many applications Robert and Dev get, but I know that the portions are the same. If we're getting 687 for 50, I can't imagine what Dev is getting or Robert's getting in terms of applications. I would come back to these things as a means to getting you to where you want to go, but stick at your plan as well. Like keep
yeah.
writing the good music. And I've just asked Stevie there to put the Culture Ireland funding link in the chat because just the opportunities you're talking about there, if they're all happening kind of from September onwards, and you can show a booking even without your agent. Culture Ireland spoke last night about their next funding round, and that's in
Okay.
on May 6th is the closing date. So that link is just before
Oh,
we have
sixth of May, is
questionnaire.
it?
Yeah, so
Cool.
if you were putting something together, Stevie, will you? If you were putting something together, that was happening from September on, that could help you financially at least to support the plan. So have a look at that in the link, and
Yeah.
that might help as well.
Amazing. Thank you.
Excellent stuff.
Can I ask Sean, where are you seeing the most growth? Where are you really gaining traction right now? Is it even across the board, or is it like socials are blowing up or live is blowing up and there's other parts that aren't blowing up for you?
Yeah, I think in terms of Nick's here and the project, the most recognizable kind of like engagement is like the live show. And like every time we play live, it's just like, you know, loads of merch sales. People are so excited. It's like, but then it's like turning that into like almost, for want of a better description, like repeat buyers or people that keep coming back. So like, you know, in terms of like any other metrics, they're not even comparable. It's like the live show is so electric. It feels like that's where like this project can really grow. And then it's like, you know, as an artist, I'm a performer. I like making music, but then it's like trying to get the right socials, the right kind of like game plan together to like, you know, support the music. But I
Are
think
you,
in terms of
Sean, are you capturing emails at your show? Are you putting up a QR code for people to
no,
connect
no,
on their
I'm
phone
not.
and things like that?
I'm not that tech savvy or thinking ahead for
I think
sure.
start where your growth is, man. And if
Yeah,
it's live set, then start getting people onto your socials. The merch sales are good. Like get them
yeah.
linking to your streaming. Like focus on what's gaining traction right now, and then build from there.
For sure, yeah, and it's good advice that because I see how it translates so well. Like you play one show and it's like 60 new followers afterwards, but then you mightn't do anything. You might play a show for 3 months and you get 10 followers, so you might lose some followers. You know what I mean? So you notice how that metric really pays off, and like just it's instantaneous, it connects, and then it's about capitalizing on that, I guess, you know.
One of the best trends I saw this year. I mean, it's a little, I don't know. I think people have mixed feelings about it, but at the festival this year, I saw a lot of people with a giant board at the end of the show hold up a giant QR code and say, "Please, connect on your
Yeah,
phone."
yeah,
And
for
it
sure.
works.
Yeah, I guess like something that like a lot of agents and like management tell me is that like because I'm at home in Ireland here now in Drogheda, County Louth, but I am based in London. It's like not to oversaturate yourself, and it's like you can't keep playing London after London because people get tired. But then it's like you know, like you're saying, if it's live that really connects, it's like getting the band all in the same place to go to. I don't know, Norwich or Manchester or Liverpool, or get the train over to Paris and then do Belgium. Like it's a big undertaking to like, really get things going. If financially it's not gonna pay you much dividends, although the fan base might grow, it's like it really is. It takes a lot of, same mindedness and commitment.
Great stuff. I think basically kind of like, I mean, Sean, you might enjoy Thursday's panel as well, which is Kieran Darcy
Yeah.
media panel. So that's one to go. So I just wanted to kind of end tonight's one by saying a big thank you to kind of our three panelists, our four panelists. Thanks to Angela, thanks to Rob, thanks to Dev, and thanks to Ben. Really appreciate them all coming along. Big thanks as well to Moya from the Louth County Council Arts Office as well for helping putting this on. Tomorrow night we're in Galway. Galway County Council are hosting tomorrow night's panel, and that will be on management. So if you're interested in hearing and talking to the people who manage the bands like Clifford's, Kneecap, and Fontaine's DC, that's tomorrow night, and that'll be at 6 o'clock. So you'll have a link to that. And then Thursday night will be the social media panel with Kieran Darcy. So hope you've enjoyed tonight's night. I hope you got something from it. I hope you're able to take away something from it, and just to stay positive and basically kind of keep on trucking. So hopefully we'll see you all back here tomorrow night or on Thursday night as well. So again, thanks from me, and big thanks as well to Stevie and Angela at FMC for sorting all this out. So see you all tomorrow night. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you guys.
Bye.